Hi, Tran. All right. Welcome, Greg. Laura, welcome. Alamrock. All right. Hello. Hey, Becky. How many people do we have currently in? Should we wait a little bit longer, or do you think we should go ahead and get started?
Up to you. It looks like we've got about 20 people here so far.
All right. Nice little warm, intimate gathering. That's cool. All right. Well, let's go ahead and kick it off then. Um, I hope it's Karen from her car. Welcome, Karen. We do have a lot of interactive activities, hybrid and distance learning tends to involve that, but we are going to be recording this. And so, Karen, if you hear, hyperlink, if you hear things that sound like they are only taking place in a computer, you are free to kind of check out the video, access the slide deck. Um, the slide deck is the handout. Hyperlinks to everything that will be referenced are within the slide deck. Okay. All right, let's get started then. So welcome, my name is Adam Ibrahim, and you are in hybrid and distance learning in the context of COVID-19. I am the Region 1 Instruction and Professional Development staff member, and we're going to be looking at, in general, we're going to be looking at some of the sort of state level guidance around what constitutes hybrid and distance learning. But before you leave, we're going to quickly pivot to looking at some considerations for pedagogy and instructional practices related to distance and hybrid learning, in order to start to, in order to start to build connections or continue to build connections and develop rich instructional experiences for students in our classrooms, virtual or otherwise. Um, and so this is going to be a very interactive session. I'll talk a little bit about the design, but I'm trying my best to sort of exemplify some of the principles that I'll be kind of talking about in here, and you can let me know the degree to which I actually achieve that. Um, so right in August, as we were starting, we were doing CTIPD. We're doing the distance learning launch series, and I'll show you some of those resources later on in the presentation. And we had all of these wonderful ideas, where we're going to engage our students, and we're going to see 30 smiling faces on our Zoom screens. And I was having a conversation after school started with a teacher, actually with one of the former teacher, current always teacher of the year. I'm like, so hey, how's it going? And her response was, all black screens, everyone on mute. Right. So what do you do? What do you do when you're facing a virtual classroom with students where you have 30 black screens with all students on mute, knowing that that's okay, right? Maybe that's okay. Maybe there are some equity issues that would prevent them from wanting to show their home or to sort of be present in their space. And so a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is really focused on how do we make engagement, collaboration, work, learning visible using some simple virtual tools. And the kind of the first thing I'd offer is pretty lo-fi, right? It's a collage. And so students can be present without being on video. Their identities, who they are, can be present in the classroom through representation. So whether that's a Bitmoji or whether that's a collage. This is one that I did. It's my background, right? So this is I know a lot of us, uh, we start off the year by talking about the self and identity and who we are. And so one of the things that I put together was a background of my background that could be my Zoom background or my WebEx background, if I wanted to sort of hide what was behind me. This was a special occasion, so I cleaned my room. But were I a little bit more sort of hesitant about what's behind me, I could show my background. So a little bit about me. My name is Adam Ibrahim. That lovely skyline is my hometown of Fresno, California. My family is from India. I grew up in California. I've lived in the Bay Area, lived all over the world, was a soldier, was an officer, was a teacher of human geography, English language arts, history, social science in Fresno Unified Schools. Spent a number of years, you can probably hear my kids running around in the background. Spent a number of years as a support specialist for districts across the state in the realm of ELA, ELD, history, social science, technology, you name it. And there's the team from Dynuba. Uh, and we did in that role, like I did everything from working with teachers to do things like we're doing today to figure out how to use virtual platforms. Everything from that to how do teachers sort of lead in the design of a system of assessments, of curriculum, down to the kind of instructional coaching piece. And the last bit there that you could see is I'm an introvert. So, I feel for you, my extrovert colleagues out there with the quarantine. But so this is just an offering of how you might want to make a person visible in a virtual classroom when there might be circumstances that prevent them from having their video on. And kind of what I'm going to do is I'm going to bounce around from, back and forth from content to platform to tools. There's a big playground in the middle. So I hope you all have access to a computer. Becky, how are we doing in terms of numbers in the virtual audience currently?
We're up to 34 people.
Oh, wonderful. That's great. That's a good number. I wish we were just in a meeting then so we could see everybody. But okay. So yeah, so I'm going to bounce around a little bit, not bounce around, but I'll move back and forth from talking a little bit about content to showing how it could work, in a virtual tool. And in that, hopefully we can understand some of the key components and considerations for distance learning. Maybe we could explore some tools for collaboration, communication, and instruction. And then I want to connect you with some resources for further inquiry. Both in terms of resources that you can view asynchronously. For those of you with the distance learning bingo punch card, you can go ahead and take asynchronous off your list, as well as some upcoming events we have for the Department of Instruction and Professional Development with the California Teachers Association. I can hear someone typing. I think I'm the only one and I'm not typing, I promise. Becky, could you make sure if not, all mics are muted? Thanks. All right, so here's the agenda. Introductions are over, you made it through. But to talk a little bit about, we'll start off a little bit at the state level, looking at the requirements, considerations for distance learning. Specifically looking at the provisions under Senate Bill 98, just that govern distance learning. I'll provide some references for further inquiry. And I do that because I feel like if you're not immersed in policy, and it's important to be able to speak to it at a general level, or maybe you've heard some of these things, some of these ideas around weekly engagement records or instructional minutes, time value. I want to just kind of provide some basic schema for where those things come from, how they fit within the bigger picture, and where you might go for further information. We will spend a lot of time on kind of the tools for distance learning. I'm not going to do a litany of tool. In fact, one of my suggestions here is, pick 3 and kind of focus on that, both for your own sanity and for learning, for the way learners process information and the way that platforms that are not used frequently or that are not practiced with can impose blockages to learning. So we'll talk a little bit about that in the context of cognitive load theory and information processing, and just think about the brain a little bit before we jump into the platform. We'll probably, at that point, I'm gonna show some information and we're gonna do some practice. We'll go into a playground kind of mode, and it can be 5-ish, 10 minutes. where based on the things I present, you can have some time doing some individual inquiry with that, and we'll use a Padlet to do that. Kind of show you how we can kind of have work some choice into kind of formative practices. After that, we'll talk a little bit about wellness and additional resources. In terms of chunks, this is what it looks like. We're going to talk about SB 98. We're going to start with a poll everywhere, which is the first tool I'll introduce, and then also a Mentimeter, which is another polling tool. After we sort of clean that up, we will move into distance pedagogy and design considerations, focusing on some simple tools, Padlet, Pear Deck, HyperDocs, which is just a doc with links. It's not a, I mean, I guess it is a thing. People, reference it like it's a thing, like, oh, I'm using HyperDocs. Well, it's more of an approach and, hyperlinking to things, but I'll show you kind of an example of that. And then we'll end on sort of some wellness. So we've done some very strict collection of data, and it turns out that 2020 is not is very bad, is not recommended. Whether it's the purple sky outside of your windows right now, or it is sort of trying to come up to speed in just an insane time with, with school changing, with the whole mode of connection, delivery, engagement, instruction, assessment, communication, all of those just being flipped on you to maybe districts that didn't quite have it together, maybe still, or didn't even have a plan, until 5 minutes before the virtual bell rang on the first day. This has been an ordeal and continues to be an ordeal. And so I think what you'll find is that, rightly so, we've heard from teachers when we've done our own data gathering that the first and foremost sort of priority here is not, the degree to which we can get students to improve their scale score and improve the color of the dashboard for the school district, right? That is not the priority. The priority is to build relationships, connect with human beings, expose them to really rich, interesting concepts, get them engaged, keep them interested, help them learn, based on who they are and where they are. And so I wanted to start off today with, with what I like to start off, I used to like to start off when I was in the classroom. And it's a good way I would say, to start off your own classrooms. And this is a poll everywhere. And so this is a polling tool. And this polling tool, and I'll drop this link in the chat, you could do a lot of things with it. One of the things that you could do is you can just upload any graphic. And here, I'm going to drop it in the chat, and I'd like to invite you to try it out. You could drop any graphic in the chat into this, and then people can drop pins on that graphic. And so in this case, what this is this is a mood meter. This comes from the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. And this is a way, it's kind of based on this principle, like, you name it to tame it, or you develop language around the different sort of, around the different emotions that you're feeling. And so from a teaching social emotional learning perspective, this is a great way to start to map some language to those internal states that students are experiencing. From a teacher perspective, it's a good way to get some, it's a good way for you to get some data on how your class is coming to you that day. And so is everybody able to access that? Let's see. Let's see. Oops. All right. Hmm. There we go. Okay. I was like, great. I was like, so everybody come along. I will show you the wonders of technology. And I can't even get the first thing to work. Awesome. Okay, that is wonderful. Look at that. Um, so it's a combination of things. I'm gonna grab a screenshot because that is just so cool. Um, this is a combination of things, right? So we're using Poll Everywhere, but in this case, we're using it to gather student data, like real-time student data about how they're coming to us, how they're showing up. And students are having to kind of make decisions, shades of meaning between different pieces of language that represent their emotional state. And so right now, maybe wow, we have a lot of people that, in this upper right-hand quadrant, this is the positive high energy quadrant. This is a wonderful place to sort of, for people that, that are motivated to do a task, for example. In the sort of the lower uh, right-hand quadrant, this is positive low energy quadrant. So this is a good place for like reflection, for doing kind of work like that. Um, Man, right, we have a cluster right here on tired, drained. We have a mopey participant in our session today. Yeah, um, disappointed. Yeah, somebody has figured out that they can drop multiple pens and are having a good time. I'll add my own. I'm feeling I'm feeling humble. I think that I get to share this information with you and have this time, and knowing that you're all tired and drained, and some of you are mopey. And then this is the one you want to kind of watch out for, right? Is the upper left hand quadrant, where you have people that are actively like in a state of discomfort, potentially in a state of dysregulation. And so if your students are coming to you like that, this is really good data to have, right? And so this is the first thing I wanted to show you is, one is the mood meter, and this just being um, a regular practice, something you do every day, a routine. And so they are sort of you're continuing to put this in front of them multiple times, and they're making associations with the color, with with the language. And yeah. Oh, you hear typing too? That's so strange because I'm not typing, promise. Um, anyway, I think you get the point. But this is a great tool, and I'll move over here, and I'm going to show you another tool. And I guarantee this will not be tool, 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 tool. But okay, so let's say scenario. Well, what do you do, right? All right, all black screens, everybody on mute. Well, how like what are you supposed to do? Um, here's something that I use personally. Maybe you get an email that kind of like sends your amygdala into fight or flight. Maybe and you're tempted to reply all. Maybe something happens and you're trying to like do a presentation. The kids are screaming or something. You notice that you have moved into a quadrant that you don't want to be in. Well, there's a Chrome extension called there it is, called Time to Breathe. And there's a link, and during our playground session, you'll have time to load it up if you wanna ask questions or if you want to use it. And it's super simple. So, I notice in our mood meter that there's some dysregulation. There's some people that are having some like hard feelings. Maybe the first thing I want to do in my class today before I jump into, the SWABATs, or before I jump into doing some collaboration with other students, right? Like, is to give people kind of a chance. If they're coming in hot, give them a chance to breathe. Maybe they won't do it. Maybe they will take this opportunity to finish that last level on their Xbox game. Um, but what you're doing is you're building a sequence in their brain from here's how I feel. This is the language that describes it. This is a way that I can regulate, and I'll show you. It's very simple. You just take this handy dandy Chrome browser, and it's just some boxed breathing exercises. And so you ask them, hey, for those of you, I see a lot of you are coming in, there's some feelings in the room. I'll ask you to the degree that you're willing, interested, to just spend a couple of minutes breathing with me. I'm going to mute so you don't have to hear me breathing, but then you can just do this. And then they breathe in as the circle expands. They breathe out as the circle contracts. In. We'll go to 2 minutes. Right, so, oh, great. Veronica using it. Cool. Great in middle school. It's super simple, right? This does not require login codes. This does not require, that you go to a 6-hour training. You load the extension, you click the button, and there you go. That's it. What's kind of cool is you can set your own timers too. You have options to set how long you want it to go. So you can adjust it to be 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, maybe excessive, but yeah. All right. So now that we're all kind of feeling cool, calm, and regulated, uh, this is just you're going to see me kind of refer back to slides. These are really, the slide deck is your handout, right? Um, these are opportunities for further inquiry. So this tells you a little bit more about the Yale Ruler tool. And this guy, Mark Brackett, is great. He is the new director of the Yale Center for Multiple Intelligence, Emotional Intelligence, and he took over for the person that coined the phrase and that wrote the book on emotional intelligence. He has a lot of great. I like to watch his lectures if that's revealing a little too much about what I do with my spare time. And so here's a link to it's a short link, a short video um, to to him talking a little bit about how to use the ruler. And in the great tradition of educators everywhere, ruler is an acronym, and it's an acronym for recognizing, understanding, labeling, expressing, with the ultimate goal of regulating. And that's for the students, and that's for the teacher. One of the yeah, high school special ed, we need breaks. We do. Is for the teacher is, you are the tier one social emotional intervention for all of your students, right? And your own wellness, your own uh, filling your own bucket, making sure that you're taking control of your own calendar and that you're drawing very clear boundaries there so that you can show up to your class cool, calm, and regulated is a tier one intervention, right? And so that regulation is key because that's what students don't know how to do, especially if the students have experienced multiple adverse childhood experiences and their brains have developed differently. They're more prone to activate a fight or flight state. And so, yeah, regulation is the goal. Regulation starts with the teacher, and that means that you need to take care of yourselves. So now that we're all in a state of Zen, I would like to talk a little bit about SB 98, Senate Bill 98, the Education Omnibus Budget Trailer Bill. This was a piece of legislation that essentially kind of codified all of the things that were floating out there about distance learning. What does that mean? How long? Who's responsible for this? How is the funding going to be determined? Like all of those big issues that were kind of floating out around everything were codified in SB 98. We're not going to spend too much time here. For those of you that really, really are interested in SB 98, I've included hyperlinks to sections of education code. It's almost Friday, right? So bottle of wine, hyperlinks to education code, couldn't be better. But just in a nutshell, I just kind of want to point to what SB 98 does cover. And, for brevity's sake, I have only included, some references. There are exceptions to a lot of these and nuances, so what if a student is co-enrolled or enrolled in a CSU class and there's all kinds of, but in general, this is sort of what SB 98, some of the pieces cover with regard to distance learning. There are 180 instructional days, 175 for charters. There are required minutes. Those minutes can be met with synchronous and asynchronous instruction. Um, you know, the who determines, how are in-person minutes determined? If you're in a hybrid situation, maybe you're a special education teacher that's working in an environment with students. Um, that's well when they're with you, however long they're with you, that determines the minutes. In terms of distance learning, who gets to decide how much time an assignment is worth? Well, that's you. That's the credentialed teacher. You are the one that is responsible for saying, this is how much time this takes. And this is how much time I spent with students. And we'll talk a little bit about that. I'll show you kind of how that could look in terms of lesson planning with asynchronous and synchronous instruction in mind. Now, here are the two things that, oh, sorry. And how do we, so there's this requirement for daily participation, right? And for those of you that are association leaders and CTA board members, there was an advisory that went out today on this. And so there was documenting daily participation. So how do we document that students are participating in class? Well, we might not remember black screens, everybody on mute. That might happen. So the degree to which you're completing regular assignments, assessments, and then the degree to which you're contacting or parents are in contact or employees of the district have contacted staff, not necessarily the teacher, need not just be the teacher. And then there's the weekly engagement piece. Last thing I wanted to hit on here, especially as districts are passing these learning continuity plans, is there's a requirement in SB 98 that there are procedures, tiered engagement procedures for re-engaging students that miss more than 3 days of school, 60% of a week. This relates to truancy law. Excuse me. And what I want to just kind of put out is a tiered engagement strategy does not mean that the teacher is responsible for all of the tiers, or maybe tier 1 and tier 2. A tiered engagement strategy means that if a student is missing school, right, that there is some sort of connection to, between the house and the teacher. But if that starts to kind of turn into a pattern, or if that requires something else and needs to be elevated to a tier 2, that need not necessarily be the teacher who we already saw the data. You're all already stretched and exhausted. That could be office staff. That could be administrators. That need not just be you. Teachers are not responsible for all of the tiers in a tiered engagement plan. And districts and LEAs must sort of be very clear about who's responsible for what and who is helping the teacher, right? Who is helping the classroom teacher when students are just not present. I just wanted to make that point that, if you see plans coming out in your district where it's like, I'm responsible for this, this, and this, well, you know what? These all sound suspiciously like escalated tiers of engagement or intervention. Maybe I need to have some support. Who is going to support? So, all right, a little bit more. I'm just going to gloss over this. Asynchronous, synchronous. I have seen many memes in the meme-averse about please do not say the word asynchronous one more time. So I'm just gonna leave that up there. If you want to revisit the definitions of this, that's there for you. And then, one of the sort of the pieces, one of the kind of fundamental pieces from SB 98 that really talks a little bit about responsibilities. One is LEAs districts are responsible to ensure that students have survey and verify, I think it's the language, that students have adequate and households have adequate technology and connectivity. They're engaged in distance learning. That the distance learning is content aligned and at the same standard of rigor as in-person instruction. And that we are supporting our English learners, our students with exceptional needs, foster, and homeless, which is a new call out, which I think is important. With our homeless, you may have heard of the term McKinney-Vento. Our homeless students, with the state of the economy and the loss of jobs, we already have this unseen epidemic of homelessness or housing insecure too, not just homeless. But just to call that out and to make sure that as systems we're a little bit more sensitized to that. And I'll share we did as part of the distance learning series, a training on that. So signs to look out for. I'll share that at the end of our time today. And then special education, and then the designated integrated ELD, and that there is some form of daily live instruction. Okay, talked a lot. Let's do an activity. So now that I've sort of talked a little bit about SB 98, I want to invite you, and I'll drop this link into our chat, to experience a Mentimeter. All right, so Mentimeter is one of my absolute favorite, real quick data gathering pieces, survey tool type of thing with lots of flexibility. And so go ahead and follow that link I just popped into the chat. I'll do the same. And I'll present. And so this is asking you to rank the following priorities. You have 100 points to spend. Don't spend them all in one place. So, when you look at all of these things that, you're faced with doing, building relationships with students and families, and even your own families, preparing rich distance and hybrid lessons, completing daily participation and weekly engagement reports, taking care of your physical and mental well-being. Where are your priorities right now? So I'm going to put a little time pressure on you here. I'm going to add the 30-second timer. Click. I love Mentimeter. It is just, there's so many quick little flexible tools that you can use. Again, it's another tool that it's sort of like, it doesn't have to be as complex and involved as Pear Deck, which we'll look at today, but you can get really interesting data, and you can have, what's kind of cool is that you can get students to start to generate their own data, which is fun. And so let me just analyze this. I am glad that your priorities are in the right place. I would like to see maybe, if I had my magic wand, I would say that I would wave it and say, like, oxygen mask on the airplane, right? Like, taking care of your physical and mental well-being is like a prerequisite for the rest of them. And then I'm actually a little surprised by the degree of priority for the weekly engagement reports, but good on you. All right. So that's Mentimeter. Pretty cool. Just really quickly, voting is closed. I'm gonna exit, and I'll show you this is kind of the dashboard of it. You can download results. That's pretty cool. What I like about it is that you can just stack stuff. So if I wanted to do a new activity with you, I could just add a slide here, and then I could choose, is this going to be a multiple choice activity, a word cloud, an open-ended question, a Q&A. You've got quiz competitions. I love the scales, the sliding scales. content slides. So if you just want to do a slide and link them out to a video, you can do that. And then there's some advanced kind of plotting questions and forms. And so it's just a great, simple tool. And I just kind of wanted to show you that. All right. All right, last piece on kind of looking at the state level stuff, and then we're going to move into how many things we can do. Yeah, it's a premium. This is a, thank you for bringing that up. There are Menti, like others, it's a freemium product. So what you could do, I don't know what exactly it is. There is a limit on it. This is the free version, but you are somewhat limited. Not too much. And I will say that about some of the other tools is I'm showing you kind of the freemium versions. If there are tools that you are starting to hit a wall with, okay, I'm using the free version, you know what, and I really need that next piece of functionality, you really should hit up your sites have money for that, right? Like this is exactly what sites get funds for. So if you're at a site that is a Title I site, right? Like if you're at a site where you want to use some of these sort of pieces to meet the diverse needs of your learners, these are great uses of LCFF supplemental dollars that typically get handed to sites. You would be shocked, or maybe not, at what what districts and principals and districts are spending their supplemental money on. So Title I funds, supplemental funds, there is money for this. This should absolutely can and should absolutely be supported by site and district administrators if it's a tool that you're finding effective. So I don't have right off the top of my head what the limit is on this, but you can kind of just Google their pricing structure. You'll see it. You can get a lot out of it, the free version as well. Okay. So a little guidance from California Department of Education. This is the guidance that they kind of came out with to help with distance learning. It's an okay read. Like there's some useful stuff in there. Why I'm sharing it with you is it's really kind of from the horse's mouth principle. Like we've seen some just goofy stuff coming down from districts about like distance learning. And it's helpful to be able to say, hey, look, you know what? Seriously, like you want us to, this, this is kind of out there. Even CDE is recommending X, Y, and Z. And so this has some kind of common definitions, some tools, tips for success, best practices. It's worth a look. I'm not saying it's gonna rock your world, but there you have it. All right. So let's talk a little bit about some stuff and get into some more activities. So we're going to move away from the state level policy and move into distance pedagogy and design. All right, so here's the resource I'm offering in terms of pedagogy. And it is from the Stanford Center for Policy Analysis for California Education, PACE. And this is the guide that they kind of put out around distance learning. And it's pretty extensive. It gives you it gives you a framework, it gives you best approaches. It's a really nice summary of what research is available out there. Again, it's a nice thing to reference if there's some goofy stuff coming down the pipeline from the district. This is a really kind of a good cheat sheet to some of the research that is out there that might challenge some goofy ideas coming from, other places. So, I wanted to call your attention to this, which it's a figure in the document, and it sort of talks a little bit about, all right, in a blended environment, in a distance environment, what should my priorities be as an educator? And they kind of break up instruction into kind of three modes. They call expository learning is what I'm doing to you right now. Well, we did a little interactivity, but I'm talking, you're listening. I am kind of conveying content. You are all, I don't know if you're out there, maybe, you know, you know, you're there kind of absorbing. It's exposition, right? Um, the sort of next level is, well, I'm actively engaged. So maybe you are individually actively engaged in the Mentimeter, in the Poll Everywhere mood meter. And so you were sort of active, but it was still individual. And then we have interactive, that collaborative piece. And so what they're saying in this research guide is that sort of in the context of blended or uh, I'm gonna come back to that question, uh, but short answer, yes. So what they're saying is that with blended or distance online learning, uh, really the highest priority should be when you're kind of designing your lessons, should be focused around giving students an opportunity to collaborate with you or one another, right? So that it's, sorry, um, so that the time that you have that is synchronous, that is we're coming together, is really like there's also that social aspect to it. For Common Core, like speaking and listening one, A through F, right? All of those like really important things, especially for our English learners, the sort of English learners and our students that may not be exposed to that kind of stuff at home. They're saying here that if you're to set your priorities about what we're doing when we're synchronous, um, structure collaboration, right? Collaborative inquiry. There's a lot of stuff they can do on their own at home. So that's kind of one of the arguments they're making here. And um, so this is kind of it's sort of like, and they also call out like we always knew this as educators, right? Like we always knew that the most important assessments were like the assessments that were closest to the human beings that were being assessed in real time, opening and closing feedback loops. We didn't need a state level summative test to tell us what our students needed. We didn't need like year-old data to help us help students. Like, so, but one of the things that this does verify, in case you have a district whose data dashboard is gasping for summative data and they've put all kinds of purchase products in place, and they're like, and you get a benchmark schedule and it's like, where we're doing what? You're pulling assessment bank items out of this and you're doing that. And that's not, benchmarking is important, but you do that normally, richly as an instructor through your own rich curriculum that's embedded in what you're doing, not external to it. This research report calls out formative assessment as the priority, right? This is not normal times. These are times where where our students are now like very atomized in very separate places, learning at very separate rates in very separate conditions. So there is a premium on flexible real-time formative assessment, which is going to, so point one, collaboration. Point two, formative assessment. So I see a question here in the chat. Is there a polling program that enables images as answers, not just words, for those learning English and students with learning disabilities to still have a voice? Would definitely like to know. I know that there are a lot of like the quiz programs, and if there are any of you in the audience that have like a ready answer for that, that's great. Pop it in. But I know a lot of learning management systems like Schoology definitely has the ability to answer. You could answer a video with a picture. You can answer audio with a picture. You could answer a picture with audio. You can, they totally mix up what you have there. You could do it with, I believe you can do it with, I don't know if you can do it with Google Forms, but that's a great question. So let me think about that just a little bit more, and then when we do the playground session, let me just kind of I'll respond more thoroughly. But um, most learning management systems definitely have an option, and let me dig around Poll Everywhere. I think they have one too. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about design. So design is, and I'm just going to touch on this as more of a thing for further inquiry. We've talked a lot about in instruction and professional development. We talked about universal design for learning, giving students multiple means for engagement, action, and expression, or multiple means for engagement, action and expression, or representation, and action and expression. Um, another thing that is really important, especially when we're talking about new platforms, when we're talking about learning being mediated by technology, learning being mediated by all of these new sort of online, you know, click paths. You click to here to get to here to get to here. This site's organized where you click to this menu. This one goes to, I mean, it creates all kinds of different stressors, different barriers to learning. Uh, and there's a really great body of theory that, for me, this is sort of when I design, and that's my love. My love is curriculum design and assessment design. And this is what's top of mind for me. And so I'll kind of tell you a little bit about it by demonstrating, which is take a moment, look at that picture, try to string that logical connection together. So how is incoming information related to sensory memory, related to working memory, related to long-term memory, forgotten, rehearsal, forgotten, encoding, and retrieval? And so what your brain is trying to do is first is trying to filter out my voice, because there's, sensory information, and you've focused, you've focused on all of the incoming stimulus. Your working memory is focused on processing this image right now. And it's working hard, and I'm taking up some of your working memory by continuing to talk. And so that's kind of stressing you out, right? Like, sometimes when you're driving on the road, and you forget where you are, and you're listening to music, and you're like, okay, I gotta focus, I gotta turn down the music, right? That's this, right? So you have to relieve your working memory so it may chew on things. And the structure is making that harder by separating information from the schema. Uh, we've introduced what we'll talk about in a little bit, which is called extraneous load. We're diverting memory resources away from the task of learning. So think about this complex picture, and now think about how much easier this picture is to understand. We've turned down the volume on the working memory. We know what we need to focus on. We can see how all of those pieces relate together in a unified concept. Right? So this is called information processing theory and cognitive load theory. And I'm just going to touch on this. What it's basically saying is this is working memory right in the middle here, right? So when you look at these dots in the middle, and we have information that's coming in that is totally important for what we want to do. We have information coming in that, like, it's super important, right? Like if somebody is telling you, the password to the vault that contains $1 million, right? that's important information. You should be able to focus on that. But our environments, and this is like so distance learning, right? Our environments and the way things are structured generate all kinds of noise that prevents us from learning, right? And this is called extraneous load. So it's extraneous. It's outside what's helping us learn. Intrinsic is this is what it takes to learn. Extraneous is this is preventing me from learning. And then so, I'll just finish this out and I'll get to the point, which is when students are trying to learn something, initially the platform, whether it's Padlet, Pear Deck, Google Classroom, or you talking through Zoom, the platform, when it's unfamiliar, it is taking up some of their working memory that is detracting from their ability to focus on what they're supposed to learn. Same with emotions, right? So there are a lot of things that can be exerting extraneous load and diverting from learning. And so what I'm going to suggest is, second thing, the more they practice, the more they build a schema, right? So I build a map. Maybe now I understand Padlet. The first time I looked at it, and this is true for us, right? The first time I looked at it, it was confusing. It was strange. It was weird. I didn't know what was going on, but I thought it might be interesting. And the more I did it, I developed a schema. And then so the content on the Padlet became easier to understand. And the platform itself wasn't generating the stressor or the extraneous load. And so here's my, my thesis or my suggestion, um, is when you're designing a distance learning ecosystem, and distance learning has been something that I've been a trainer for multiple platforms, and involved with this for a very long time. I've done rollouts of learning management systems at districts and school sites, and man, keep it simple. Think about what's my ecosystem. What are the three things in my, what is the touchstone? So what's the thing that I'm coming back to every single day, whether it's PowerPoint or a Google slide or a HyperDoc or whatever it is? What's the touchstone that is the familiar routine that I come back to every day? And then what are the tools that suit my needs and my students' needs? Maybe three, no more. And maybe one at a time. And then stick with those. And then sort of your brain, what happens is, I know you've been to trainings where it's like, and here's an app, and here's an app, and here's an app, and every app. Yeah, and your working memory gets overloaded, right? And you're stressed out and you're angry and you're like, that's too much. Well, that's because your working memory was just blasted through. So take it slow, one at a time. And then, you'll know because you'll free up your working. Once you have a free working memory slot, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I got Pear Deck. That's easy. That was hard. Now it's not. So, okay. Speaking of Pear Deck, another freemium thing, right? Nothing isn't. And I mean, other than the Google, most of you are Google. There are a couple of districts out there that um, chose Microsoft. Like trying to do. Plus, we have to make sure we don't introduce too many. Totally, totally. Yeah, it's like that frenetic piece. It becomes more about like the sort of like the tool, less about what they're supposed to be learning. Um, and so just a couple at a time, maybe one at a time, get good at it, introduce another one, slow is smooth, smooth is fast, that kind of thing. Um, and I love, okay, so, you know, I'm not talking about district sponsored learning management systems. I'm talking about kind of what's out there. If you, if you're in the Google universe, that's cool. Like that's just the most flexible place to be. If you're in the Microsoft space, um, I don't know if Region 1 even has any Microsoft districts, but my advice is there are school sites that have been able to effectively, in Microsoft districts, that have been able to effectively get sites to pay for um, a site level Google Apps. So, anywho, I have no sort of brand loyalty. I am a platform agnostic human being, but it's just easier. So let's do Pear Deck. Um, so conceptually, because a lot of the trouble with Pear Deck is just kind of grokking it, just wrapping your mind around it. And essentially, what it is it takes your slide deck and it builds a whole structure around it for interactivity. So it's not something you add to your slide deck. What you're really doing is you're adding your slide deck or you're adding your lesson to Padlet, and then it builds all these capabilities within it and around it. And so that's what we're going to do. Again, I just really like to do, for me, my touchstone has always been Google Slides since I've been able to use it. Um, I use PowerPoint for like intense visual presentations, but I use, for interactivity, Google is kind of where I go. I like add-ons. So Pear Deck, let's say I'm building a slide deck, a lesson, or I'm building the presentation for today. I can just click on my Pear Deck add-on, and this little bar pops out here to the right. And so I'll show you some of the options that you have, but essentially right away, like, your workflow is like this. Okay, I'm talking about something, I'm introducing things, and at this point, I kind of want to see what they're doing about this. And then so you want to insert something interactive. Then that's time to open up your Pear Deck sidebar and to enter in, maybe a text response, choice, number, website, draw, and I'll show you more of those. Or, and this is what is so cool, especially when you're thinking about asynchronous learning, is Maybe I'm building a lesson out of a slide deck and I just want to add some audio to it. You can do that too, and it pops it right into the slide, which is just that. I used to do that in PowerPoint and that took forever. This is so easy. So anywho, I'm going to start a lesson and invite you in. So the way that, oh yeah, and then when you start your lesson, is this a student-paced activity or is this an instructor-paced activity? So think about it. Black screens, everybody on mute. You can now take control of their screens and what they see, right? Like a little, aha, yes. And you can know, it's sort of like that trick we did when we were reading, and it's sort of like, okay, how do we get the kids to follow along? Well, I'm going to read, and when I stop, they better all corally respond on the next word. You can kind of do that with Pear Deck. All right, so go ahead and join. And the way that you do that is you go to joinpd.com, and then you enter in this code. So I'll pop the joinpd.com into the chatty box. Quizzes. Oh, there we go. Awesome. Quizzes. Joinpd.com. And then once you go to joinpd.com, and I'll do it on my backup computer here. This is how dissociative my life has become. I have a MacBook here and a PC here. Oh, I have a student. Yay. I'm so excited. Zulu, India, Whiskey, November, Foxtrot. 2 students. That's enough. 3 students. Come on in. 4 students. Welcome. Come on in. Yeah, I'll give you a direct link too if you want. Here you go. Here you go. 7 students. Welcome. Welcome. You'll notice that when you go in, the first thing it asks you is how you're feeling today. And so that's great too, because you can actually look at that data. So I'm going to start class. I believe you can join once it. So, you know, if I were looking at that, you can check that data. I'll show you how you do it. You open your dashboard in a new window. You kind of make sure that they don't see it, right? And it shows you 10 students, open roster, and then you can kind of see how people are doing. So cool. All right, so I'm going to click through, so you should all see this. I have now taken over control of your screen. Here we go. I'm going to advance all the way to where we are. Trip down memory lane. All right, here we go. So I'd like to know where you are. So the way that you do this activity is you just drop your, there you go. That's cool. Love that. I love that. That never gets old. Here I am. I'm there too. Cool. Look at that. There are some of you that are Crescent City. God, love it up there. If you ever need a training, Crescent City, when we're back in face-to-face mode, I would be more than happily, awesomely happy to come up and do some work in my favorite part of the state. Washington Bay Area. We got some people who are, oh wow, okay. I'm sorry. I just created a map for Region 1. I see some people that are trying to go back to Southern California. Yeah, so this is great, right? So let's go on to another one. Okay, so now this is a drawing tool. And so I'll just let you play around here for a minute. Yeah, how do you feel about Pear Deck? Okay, what's your current level? You can draw it now. So you have a little drawing dashboard. So maybe I just want to put a little green dot. I'm done, but I'm interested. So that's how that works. And then you can, infrequent user, cool. You can just drop a dot. You can even write. And you know, in terms of security, you know, you can, it's okay. Like you can see who wrote it. Yeah. It's not showing. Yeah. Let me just refresh that really quickly. Okay. All right. So this is a shameless plug for Prop 15. So now that, now that I have control of your screen, so another thing that you can do is you can have them go out. So you should see on your screen. Please in the chat tell me if it's not working for you. But you should see on your screen a hyperlink here. How much would your district receive? And so what you can do is, what I love about this feature is you can send them out to a website, but then have them come back in with an answer. And then so what this one is asking you to do is how much would your district receive from Prop 15? Mixing a little union business with professional learning pleasure here. And so I love this tool because it like really kind of makes the point. So let's say, now let's go to my hometown where I grew up, Fresno Unified. So if Prop 15 passed, how much additional funds would come into Fresno Unified Schools? Oh, that's a lot of money, 51. So I'm just going to pop in my answer, $51,607, $374. All right, that's it. Okay. And then so I have, so then I start to get responses. 16 million, I'm sure. More than we really have. 16 million. Oh man. That's wild. Look at that. Look at that. Oh, I love how you added I should have said that. Like, yeah, add your district. Wow. Del Norte is on the side. Mono County, look at that. So kind of cool. You can do like you could send them out to watch a video, bring them back. Okay. All right. So I'm running a little bit behind on time. So I'm going to end our Pear Deck by just showing you. I'm going to end our class. Maybe I'll say this was our session. I won't save our data here, but you can save the data from the session for assessment purposes. And then you can, I'll just kind of show you very briefly what some of the options are within Pear Deck. Oh, I already did, but I'll just touch on it. So I 2 kids in distance learn, a partner who is a distance learning kindergarten teacher, and me on the internet. It starts to get a little slow around here sometimes. They're not on right now. It's all me, but had to upgrade. Okay, so yeah, so I love it because it's like I'm doing my work, I'm building my deck, and then, okay, this is where I want to do something. I'm going to hit my Pear Deck add-on. Then I can just create my lesson or my task, my formative assessment. Whether it's the draggable, which is cool, which is what we did with the map. You could do the drawing, which is what we did with the 4 corners. And you could do the numbers, which is cool for estimation because it starts to average it. It's pretty cool. Lots of stuff to do. And then the audio. So that's Pear Deck. All right. So what I wanted to show you, and I'm just going to show you this, and I'm just going to show you this. In my mind, we were 15 minutes. We had 15 more minutes, but I didn't manage time effectively. And okay, and that happens, right? Process of continuous improvement. Next time I do this, I will trim some stuff back. Okay, so Padlet. I know many of you have probably taken a look at a Padlet. It's time to take another look at a Padlet. If it's been more than 6 months, it's time to look at Padlet again. Um, so the Padlet I designed here was sort of like a choice board. Um, like, hey, I want to know more about the ruler thing. Hey, I'd like to check out that report from PACE. Or, hey, I'd like to browse some of the virtual formative assessment tools. Or I want to explore Prop 15 resources maybe. Or, I'd like to know more about cognitive load theory. Little plug for this. This links to an absolutely charming um, podcast. This 45-minute podcast on cognitive load theory. If you're interested in like how the brain works and working memory and all that, it's by these two teachers that work in computer programming, I believe, and it's fascinating. Uh, so, but this is great. Like Padlets are, for you early ed people out there, for early elementary, Padlets are great parent communication tools. Padlets are great collaboration tools, brainstorming tools. So if we think of our Mentimeters to gather data from our students, our Pear Deck or whatever like it, like a Nearpod or something else that you use, or Quizlet, that's to kind of do some real-time formative assessment. Your Padlet it's a great place to just do some more free-flowing collaboration and gathering of data and information. People can post back here. And why I said if you haven't taken a look at it recently, please do, is because this is not the Padlet of yesteryear. Uh, Now what we can do with Padlets is you can upload files to it. That's the same. You can do links. That's the same. You can search videos and stuff to directly put in. That's new. You could do photos. That's not new. But you can do film. So I didn't hear. I saw in the chat something about like English learners. Oh man. So you don't necessarily have to go into Flipgrid, which I appreciate Flipgrid. I'm not going to say anything bad about Flipgrid, but from like a teacher perspective, sometimes it's just like it's a little shouty as far as platforms go. It's like it's stressful sometimes. Um, you can use your Padlet to capture film, so it's wonderful. You can do, and I am such a like one of my favorite things is, um, I have a background in English language development too, and so I am really big on speaking and listening, and I'm really big on listening before reading and speaking before writing. And what I love about the Padlet is that you can give students that opportunity. Um, you can have them do, so here's another great thing. Let's say that I wanted to show you how to do this Padlet or anything. I can grab my screen and I can do a little demo and I can hit share and it'll be impressed in that as a video. So the new Padlet upgrades, it is so flexible. It is such a flexible tool. That's why I put it in my kind of my three. Um, okay, so Padlet's there. 5:08, 15 minutes. So let's just wind it up here. Also, if you want to learn a little bit more about Padlet and Pear Deck, we just recently did this session. It's a great session with with my colleague and ILC colleague Krisha Kerpool. And so here's what's fun about her session is that we did the session as part of the distance learning lunch, and it cues it up. I linked the video to take you right to the section on Padlet where she kind of shows you how to do it. But you'll notice it's 2 hours and 13 minutes. So we were supposed to do an hour. We ended up doing 2 hours because we just did like on Zoom, we just said, okay, here's a Zoom meeting link. Who wants to hang out and do more? And like we just hung out with teachers from LA, all to San Diego, all the way up to Northern California into the border with Oregon. And we just had this really cool design session where we just handled questions and we worked them through. Where can we get the mood meter for poll everywhere? Great question, Charlotte. So the mood meter, what I would say, sorry, I'm jumping around, but I just want to answer that while it's in all the mood meter is this picture. And so then I would say just grab this picture or Google mood meter, and it's just an image that you throw up in the poll everywhere. So all I did was I just uploaded it to the Poll Everywhere here. You could also do it as, let's say I didn't want to do Poll Everywhere because I don't like it, and I decided to use Pear Deck and I just want to stick with that. Well, if I wanted to do that, or any picture, if I want to have people put dots on any picture, just pop open my Pear Deck. Boom. Start a lesson. Oh no. Design a draggable. Decide how big of a thing I want to give them and what color. Stars. Red is angry. Let's go cool. Right. Update slide. Then all I want to do is, if I have downloaded the picture and I have it living on my desktop, which I think I do, well, let's just say this is, oh, no, I'll just copy it. Here, let's just do this. So let's just say I'm gonna do this. I'll take my mood meter, take a picture of it, just for purposes, just for our demo purposes. Okay, so pretend that didn't happen. I'm making my Pear Deck, right? Boom, mood meter. Picture from any picture on the internet, any picture. You could use a Diego Rivera painting. You could use so many different things that you could pop on here that they can interact with, and then you just make it a draggable. And then so when I do my lesson, when it goes to my lesson, and you don't have to join this time, I'll just show you. I'm coming here to the end. But so when the lesson starts, people, let me just close it. So then all they will do is, you've created this. This is a drag the icon. They're going to drag it to where they are. So that's a, you could totally use the mood meter in Pear Deck. In fact, if I would recommend it that way. The mood meter is just an image on the internet and a tool from the Yale Center. So, okay, let's hammer through this. This is what a hyperdoc looks like. All a hyperdoc is, it's just like a visual lesson plan with hyperlinks, right? Draw this. How do you manage copyrights? You know what? I'm just going to leave this. It sounds like we have some questions. And so what I'll do is let's see. Becky, am I allowed to hang out for a little bit if there are people that want to leave and people that want to kind of ask some questions? Is that a possibility?
Sure, that's fine.
Cool.
There is another session starting at 5:30.
Okay, we'll just
a general
do
session panel.
Minutes. Yeah, we'll just do 5. Okay. I want to show you this and then I'll answer the questions. The California Teachers Association Instruction and Professional Development team, which I am a new member, we are doing a distance learning support series. And so please do, if you take anything away, this is great stuff right here. This takes you to our microsite, wellness, right? So we just did 2 sessions on wellness with Will Hinson from 321 Insight. Unbelievable. Really deeper on the concept of regulation and taking care of yourself, putting on your oxygen mask first. And you can register for upcoming series that we're doing. And I'm so excited about this. Social emotional learning, a positive strength-based approach. That's a 2-part series with Ray Appleton. And then we're going to be starting off Mindful Mondays, 30 minutes, every first and third Monday of the month. Different mindfulness topics like breathing, like laughter, like movement, meditation. And then we're also doing, we have some other tools that we're going to be sharing as well. So if you register there, you'll start to get the communications, right? Last thing I'd like to say, so Prop 15, I'm sure that none of you out there are, suffering from an overabundance of funds, right? Like, so it's all this year. This year, it's sort of like we have a little reprieve because we were held harmless in essence on funding. Um, but that's going to start to hit like in the declining revenues. And so this isn't, Prop 15 is not going to go, it's not going to fill like, it's not going to get us to where we need to be in terms of per pupil spending in the nation. But we need every dollar that we can to avoid layoffs and to make sure that we have decently resourced schools. Uh, if you have, I'm just going to encourage you. This is my ask. What I'm willing to do is I'm willing to do trainings in any of your districts. I'm willing to share. I'm willing to spend more time on Pear Deck. I'm willing to do kind of side by side stuff, and I love doing that stuff, right? So there's my email for that. That's who I am at my heart. I'm a trainer. I love working. The way I make change in the world is I help. I love teachers and I help teachers. That's what I like to do. Um, like what I would ask is, uh, you know, contact your local association. See if there's any way you could help out with some local phone banking for Prop 15. We've got to get this done. And if there's nothing happening in your local, send me an email. We're going to be doing some phone banking, some member outreach. It's not really like cold calling, with a small local on Tuesday, a suburban Bay Area district, and we would love to have you join us, help us out. We only have, need 300 calls to make total, and that'll be split many ways, and so it'll be a nice chance to connect, learn a little bit more about the proposition and why it's important, and to help out the union, help out our schools. So with that, there is my email address. Again, I just want to thank you so much for everything that you are doing in this insane time to keep our kids connected, healthy, happy, um, and you're just so critical for them, right? In this insanity. Um, and so I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And last thing, I implore you to put the oxygen mask on yourself first. Take control of your calendar. Make sure you put buffers in there. It is even cynically from, what's the, you know, like if we're all, you need to be calm, cool, and collected for your kids and for yourself. So please do take care of yourself. And with that, I'm going to say thank you. If you got to go to another session, go ahead. If you want to ask some questions, and I'm going to answer Linda's right now. So how do you manage? Oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah, PowerPoint. Let me just pop that in. Hey, Becky, could you pop the link to the PowerPoint in the chat?
Yeah, I'll grab it.
Cool, thanks. Copyrights. All right, let me show you this. This is great. So Google. All right, let's say I want to look up the mood meter. Thank you, Stephen. All right, mood meter. Okay, so I'm going to go to Google Images. How do I know which one? Oh, thank you, Catherine. How do I know which one is copyrighted and which one is not? You don't. But if you go to Tools, you can go to Usage Rights, right? And Creative Commons. Okay? Means, and they don't, I guess those are all mapped, but like, let's say I just want to look at kids, kids having kids, fun. If it has a Creative Commons license, then you're good to use it. Okay? So that's a search function. There are also other browsers that look specifically for Creative Commons. You're welcome. So that helps with the I like the plug for the digital citizenship. That's all good. Cool. So are there any other questions for those? And Becky, you can tell me when everybody has slipped out and they're like, but if there are any other questions, I'm happy to answer. All right, I think we'll call it. Does that sound good?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. I'm going to stop sharing. And okay. Thank you so much for your help. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.